Oh, hey Mark, how are you today?
Doing great, Charlie. How are you doing?
Wonderful. This is the last thing that we're doing today on a Friday, so I'm quite super excited to record this. Now, the first question that I ask everybody is, how do you like your coffee in the morning?
That's a great question, Charlie. I like my coffee black. It's got to be hot, and the stronger the better.
Amazing. Is there anything about the coffee beans that's particular for you, or is it just give me coffee black and that's it?
Pretty much, yeah. I'll take anything that's black and strong and hot like that because it just, my mornings are a little rough.
The question that we want to obviously get into today with the podcast is, what is it that you do and why do you do it?
Sure. Great question, Charlie. So WeIntegrate is it's a solution provider. Long term, what we're doing is we're building out an e-commerce operations hub to help small e-commerce merchants have the ability to close the knowledge gap and have a successful company. Because we find that 70% of the businesses that get started, what they do is they don't really know what they're doing, right? Especially like these days where someone has a job, they start a side hustle. You have apps like Shopify that are very easy just to sort of, pay a subscription and get started with. People go in, head first, and not really realizing that, while they're pursuing their passion, there's a business that has to get run, right? You have to understand how to manage the finances and the inventory and the operations and how to compete and market, right? And so, typically when a small business gets going, in addition to hanging up a Shopify store, they get a accounting application, they get a marketing application, they get a fulfillment application, and more. And this information is disparate, and so our hub is going to allow all these different systems to plug in. But then, centrally speaking, using AI and robotic processing, we're going to basically have a COO, CFO inside the box, right? So to be that guidance to the businesses and prevent them from making mistakes. Currently, we are integrating Shopify with QuickBooks Online and instantly automating the bookkeeping process, which has been a game changer for our clients, as well as the accounting profession that we also partner up with and work through. It's improving accuracy. It's addressing all sorts of sales tax issues. It's dealing with helping people manage their inventory and get a really better handle on instant real-time data so they can make accurate, smart decisions better, as like a first step towards this bigger vision that we're driving towards. And why we're doing this is we're just passionate about the small business market. I've been doing this I've been helping small businesses, I should say, with technology for let's just say a long time, my entire career. And it's just something that's part of my DNA. And I just love using technology and getting inside the brains of a small business and helping them succeed.
I love it. And that is what we're getting into today, and that's also why this podcast was set up. It was this very similar mission to you. There are a lot of small businesses that don't make it past the 5-year mark or the year, even like the 12-month mark. And what are those variables that like make or break businesses? And I like what you said there. There was that, yes, you might have a passion for a business. And there has been a few people who've come on the podcast who have started businesses because they had a passion and they wanted to take it into their main life. And anybody who wants to do that, I absolutely encourage them to do. But it's exactly what you've said. When it now is your hobby, your passion is now a business, there are some other things that you need to understand and know and do in order to make sure that you're a success. So, your focus is on helping, you're helping two people. You help e-commerces, making sure that they absolutely thrive and they survive. And then you helping accountants almost enable them to help their customers to be better and as a positive byproduct help accountant businesses to grow. So those are the two people we're going to focus on today and talk about today, as well as your own journey on how you got here. So you have seen a pain point and you've said, right, okay, from my experience and my knowledge, I'm connecting basically online shop owners with their finances, their QuickBooks, their zeros, their basically their bookkeeping. Why is that so important?
Well, Charlie, why that's really important is because obviously, to run a business, especially in a very competitive environment, right? And you may think, starting a side hustle, or just, getting started as a first-time entrepreneur, you may not necessarily realize how the competition market or the landscape is quite yet, right? But when you're dealing with an e-commerce environment, if you do want to succeed, it is highly competitive, right? So having the right information at the right time, quickly, right? So being able to make the right decisions, smarter and better, as they say, and knowing that information is provided to you in a way that you can think about it properly, and kind of tie the concept of sales and finances together is incredibly valuable, right? Because sales, finances, and cash flow are the cornerstone, right, of getting that business going. Having accurate account of your inventory, understanding how your cash flow is running, which is a component of the kind of integration that we do. Seeing your sales in instant, forecasting from within the finance environment, critical. From the merchant's perspective, let alone the accounting perspective, where if you're an accountant and you're looking to service clients, right, time is money, right? Bookkeeping is a manual, tedious process, and why not let a system like WeIntegrate eliminate that process for you? So this way, if you have a system that integrates and you can count on it, it's reliable, it's accurate, it's instant, and it helps you reconcile easier, better, and faster. This opens up time for, number one, for you to focus on giving your clients more value add services, right? Which you potentially, maybe you do a little bit less of, but you charge more for, and extra time. Now you can go ahead and service more clients.
So let's start with the e-commerce for now. And so you said, fundamentally, as a business owner, if you're with a merchant, you can make better decisions. Now, what would be a really classic example of when it's done well, and a classic example when it's done poorly? So let me put this out a little bit, contextualize this a little bit more. So business owner, what's the difference between making a great decision and a bad decision from using your data?
Well, hopefully they make good decisions using our data as opposed to bad decisions. But when you don't have visibility and you can't look at trends, right? You can't look at how your business is performing today at this moment. You can't have as much visibility to your cash flow.
I have a couple of clients that I help scale and grow myself, and they are both, and I'm using these both as an example, as a plural, even though they're very, very separate, very, very different in the products that they do, but they are seasonal products. They are seasonal businesses, and ironically, they're opposing seasons. One of them is the summertime, and one of them is the wintertime. And so when we're looking at the trends, when we're looking at the data, we know exactly which day when sales are going to we see that sales light up. They almost double in turnover because we can predict. Admittedly, we've got years of it. We've got years of this data now behind them. But like I said, they've been running it a while. We know when the start of season starts and when the end of season starts, because it goes up like this and it goes down like that. And yes, we do have now we're talking about how can we implement strategies from this data. Well, we're able to diversify the product range, so that they've got more products that their typical consumer would buy over in the opposite season. Now, we can't get it quite perfect just as from the narrative that they're in, but we've certainly been able to get more of a flat revenue rate per month, essentially. And that's just like one of the instances of like how they kind of combat it. And they know, even though they might appear to be succeeding. So one of them, at the moment, they are flying. They look like they are on target to do their best year yet. But we know we're in peak season at the moment, and it's absolutely prime. So it's for them, it's how much cash reserves can they be building in when they get to the peak winter times, because they're almost thinking they're having to double the amount now in order to be able to survive throughout the winter. And if they spend too much on the marketing, they might not have enough cash reserves, but they don't spend enough on marketing, they might not get enough sales in. And how that look, and here's here's the real game. That's where it comes in. So let's talk a little bit about your journey, and how you came to helping others, really solve their challenges and solve problems. How did you get to this point to starting WeIntegrate? What was your starting point for you?
Yeah, in fact, Charlie, we had this. This is a great story. So one time when I was with the EDI company, I was at a trade show, and I'm walking on the floor of the show, minding my own business, and then all of a sudden, this woman, who turned out to be the CEO of an owner of one of our clients, she saw me, and she came running over, and she gave me a big hug, and she started breaking out in tears because because she said prior to us, she was trying to use one of our competitors to fulfill all these orders, and she was a big client of Bed Bath & Beyond's at the time, and they would get literally like 1,000 orders a week, and they're a small business, right? And like, how do they support 1,000 orders a week? And they had to take all the resources, which weren't many. It was maybe like 3 or 4 people, maybe 5 people at the company that could support this, and they're putting all their efforts trying to run Bed Bath & Beyond. It took a whole week to process everything.
So that's an incredible story. Something like you said. One of my next questions was like, what are the limitations for small businesses where they have now this fantastic opportunity to be competitors against the bigger players? And I think that's just a prime example. It's when I use a strategy when I'm looking at a business and why isn't it growing, and it's called the theory of constraints. What are the bottlenecks that is preventing you from achieving that next level? And from the sounds of it, like if we analyze her business, she'd grown it to the point where she got some bread and butter clients, that she got some regulars coming in that are of a manageable size, and then she's tried to take a risk to get a bigger client like Bath and Beyond, but they're so big that then they almost take up so much of her resources that it's a difficult task. Now, let's take a few decades ago, she just wouldn't even be able to take them as a client. That would have been a wrong, like we're going back to it, that would have been a wrong decision for her if she wanted to manage the risk that it gets imposed on her resources and the constraints of her resources. Yet now those limitations, they've just completely been eradicated. We've got new constraints on the businesses. It's like, how can she continue that scaling whilst competing? Now, interesting. So what we're talking about here is using data to make better decisions. And how they've been changing in the landscape. Now, let's go to the accountant's point of view. So traditionally, for the accountants, they have always just been told to run the numbers, tell the owner what tax they need to pay, how much money is in the cash in the bank account, and really just kind of run the numbers. But what I know is happening in the landscape these days is they are there to be providing financial advice, them to be recommending how businesses can be more smarter and more efficient. So now you're giving them true transparency and accuracy and increasing their productivity. What's some of the recommendations that they can be telling the e-commerces of what they can do? I mean,
they can, some of those gaps that we were talking about earlier from a financial management perspective of, depends on the bookkeeper / accountant, right? And what their knowledge is. Like what we see is there's all different levels of experience when it comes to accountants that service the e-commerce market. Some have been doing it for a while, and some, this is all that they do. In fact, we've seen that there's bookkeepers that focus entirely on Shopify, right? All they do is Shopify. And there's others that don't have any Shopify clients. But when you look at the market, right, and the way the market is heading, it's a very appealing opportunity for accountants. So even the ones that haven't, they're excited when they get a client or 2 or 3 or 4, right? Or they just want to get started in it. So, they're not really that experienced. So you have a whole range of experience when it comes to e-commerce accountants. So they can provide different types of advice depending on what their background is. But overall, when you have a system like ours, right, that can help integrate faster and easier and more accurately, it actually enables the less experienced bookkeeper who previously may have shied away from embarking upon taking on an e-commerce client because the traditional methods have been a little more complex, right, to understand. Like, you have to deal with chart of account issues and journal entry issues and things of that nature.
What is this happening? The really poor reactive response to that, you could think that people are stealing out of your business, for example, which then you could demotivate your employees because you then don't trust them as much. A more positive reaction would be that you're spending time diagnosing what's the problem and getting to the bottom of it, but then that's more time out of your business that you could be refocusing elsewhere, for example. And these, I think this is really the crux of today's podcast, and what we're trying to say is, between a good decision and a bad decision, it's we only have a finite amount of time each week in order to move the needle positively. And if we can incrementally be spending our time on positive things rather than having to do some firefighting or being misled down the garden path kind of information. So reflecting over your career, what's some of the, and then now looking forward, so one of those, what's the best and worst lessons that you've learned that you're going to be putting the good stuff forward, so to speak?
So as far as lessons learned, I guess I'll start with one of the toughest lessons I learned, and then I'll end with a positive lesson. They both actually have to do with listening, right? As an entrepreneur, right, you get into your business and you feel that you kind of know everything, or you're supposed to know everything, or you're expected to know everything. And what you eventually learn over time is that you aren't. Like, nobody can know everything, but the smart entrepreneur learns how to surround him or herself with people who do know things that they don't know and can help them with things that they don't necessarily know. And it's actually really smart, right? Because you could try to figure things out, right, on your own. And, if you're that kind of person, but how long is that going to take? Right? Like, and what's the cost of time and the cost of opportunity that you're giving up because you want to try to quote unquote do it yourself. And whereas if you could either partner up with someone or get advice from someone who happens to be an expert in that area, you can generally move along a lot faster. In my case, the hard lessons were that, when I came off my first company and started my second company, at the first company, we achieved some really awesome success, right? But not that we didn't have any issues, but the issues we faced were, normal issues. Like, they were minor kind of issues. They weren't really any hard-pressed issues that really tested my fortitude, to a really big degree. But when I started the second company, you sure as can imagine, I was challenged with some major fortitude type decisions and issues that I had to face. But I went into it with a little too much confidence. You could actually say a little bit cocky and arrogant from the first success. And so when given advice, I wasn't really paying attention to that advice because, hey, I just came off of a successful company. I know what I'm doing, kind of a thing. And that cost me to make some really critical mistakes that were very detrimental to the success of that business. And unfortunately, over time, there were some very, I lost a lot, personally through that experience. I learned a lot, through the lessons, and eventually opening up and realizing the mistakes that I made. I just wish I could have done it at a much, less costly manner. But I did learn a lot. And what I did learn, I was able to bring forward with me, which is great. And, I'm applying those experiences here now to WeIntegrate, and, back to making smart decisions the right way, and, being open to feedback and guidance and all that sort of stuff. But the other piece that I think is critical when, I think really any business, now I obviously am particular to software businesses and using technology to help clients, and in the small business space, where I happen to have a lot of domain experience when it comes to supply chain, e-commerce, order processing, etc. So I could again take this position of locking myself in a room, think I know everything. In this case, I might actually know everything, and kind of writing some really awesome software that arguably the market would like. But I would never do that, right? Because what I've learned through my career is I'm not writing software for me. Right, I'm writing software for my clients, who are ultimately these merchants that are selling right now through Shopify, but eventually other means, and working to help the bookkeepers and accountants build a more efficient business practice, have access for them too to have access to the right information so they can service their clients better. And it's got to be a system that works for them. Like, they're the ones that are in the trenches, they're the ones that have to use it. So it's important to get their feedback, right? And understand that, their input is important. Now, I don't necessarily take one particular person's feedback and use that as a basis. You want to try to spread it out a little bit and get multiple input.
That's some really good lessons. I'm gonna leave today's podcast there. The end the episode on that point, because I think that is I love the analogy, and it's absolutely a big lesson that if you can get your head around that straight away, that along the subway there's going to be lots of different stops, some bigger stations than others. Those bigger stations are really bigger failures. At some point you are going to hit and crash bang into the destination of success. And I think that's a really great lesson for everybody to keep in the forefront of the mind, especially if you're in the hole currently listening to this. So thank you so much for your time today, Marc. This has been really, really good, and really gives it insight into the e-commerce sort of data realm. So thank you so much, and I hope you come back again soon.
All right, awesome. All right, Kelly. Really appreciate it. It was awesome.